student needs to be challenged. No matter how low you think they are, whatever they're at, they need to feel that it's a little bit hard, but not too hard. It's a very difficult sweet spot. And I don't get it right every day.
Welcome back to the ACTFL Voices podcast. Glad to see you here again. And that was Jessica Haxhi, who we're going to talk to today. And we're going to do the magic, finding the magic in language learning. Also, a couple new updates that we want to tell you guys about and some opportunities in the future for future subjects. Well, it's ACTFL Voices.
I am my language, I am my soul. We are our voices, making us whole. Every word a path, a light, a fire. Multilingual hearts rising higher.
Jessica Haxhi brings decades of experience to the world language classroom as a Japanese teacher and enthusiast. An ACTFL past president, past co-president of the American Association of Teachers of Japanese, past NECTFL board member, and current supervisor of world languages for the New Haven Public Schools. As the receiver of the Milken Educator Awards and the Elgin Hines Teacher Award, we welcome her to the ACTFL Voices podcast.
I'm with my counterpart, Christine. Say hi.
Nice to be here again. Excited to meet Jessica and talk about some magic. It's always a fun topic.
It is. So, Jessica, I want to start, and I always start with most language teachers and anyone on the podcast. You know, how did you get into language learning? And I think it's specifically your story as far as language learning and what got you into it.
Well, thanks so much, Ainsley, and thanks to both of you, Christine and Ainsley, for having me here today. I'm so excited to talk with you. So I was in high school. I had a phenomenal U.S. history teacher who also was very active in Amnesty International. This was years and years ago, and in Latin America. And he got me very interested in Latin American studies. I had done French in high school, but when I got to college, I switched to Spanish so that I could do a comparative area studies Latin America major, it was called back then.
Oh, wow.
And then I made it to spring of sophomore year, and I wanted to apply to study abroad. And my eyes were set on Costa Rica, but it was 1988. Now you know how old I am. It was 1988, and Nicaragua and the Sandinistas and the Contras and all of this stuff was on the news constantly about war in Central America. And so my father, he said, find the safest country in the whole world and maybe you can study abroad. So I went to the study abroad office and I said, well, what's the safest country in the whole world right now? And they said, well, probably Japan. Like, okay, whatever. And so I'm embarrassed to say it wasn't that I had a long-term love affair with Japanese or anything. I just went, and it was amazing. Like it was meant to be for me. It really was the first time I did well. Like I did well in those language classes. Culturally, it was a real match to my personality. I still love Spanish and I speak Spanish as much as I can, but Japanese worked well for me. I was in a hobby, model airplanes, that also was being done a lot in Japan. So I spent a lot of time with native speakers in Japan doing that. And sort of the rest is history. So I became a Japanese teacher of all things.
Just out of luck. Just really, truly.
Luck and what Dad made me do. He also made me take typing class. So there you have it. That worked out too. So
how fun.
I remember years ago, I took a home ec class, so no one knows what I'm talking about anymore. But it was actually worth it. Like when I made my first pillow and I put a hamburger in front of it.
There you go.
It was pretty cool. I don't know what I did with that pillow, but I was really proud of that pillow. I was cutting out and tracing anyway. But yeah, nobody wants to know about my hamburgers. So you're jumping into Japanese, you learn it, and I guess that's just like a big culture change for you, right? Like it's to go and just travel and see all that. You said you fell in love with it. Did you kind of fall in love with the culture?
That's a really good question. I went back again after college on something called the JET program, which is an English teaching program through the government, and they organize everything and your visa and all that. And that, I think, is when I really I was really living there and independently and being a teacher there. And that's when I think it really started clicking for me. Even though I loved it the first time, that's when I really started realizing how much I loved it. And actually, I think that even then, though, it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't easy being
Yeah.
a foreigner in Japan
Yeah.
before there were a lot. And then, so I think that I love it even more now than I ever did. You know, like now when I go and I take students, I get there, I arrive and I really just like exhale. And I'm like, this is my second home. Especially now that I speak it well enough that I'm never nervous. You know how when
That's
Wow.
you're
amazing.
first learning
Yeah.
a language, you're always sweating kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But now I've done so many trips and so many circumstances, you know, I'll probably have to knock on wood. God knows what'll happen next time I go. You know, I had so many things there that now I'm just enjoy it. I just go and I speak. And I think that's what we want for our kids is
Yeah.
any language situation, whether it be abroad or down the street, they're just able to slide into that second language and feel so comfortable there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's the dream. Yeah,
that's the
for
dream.
sure.
Right.
No, that's really cool. And just to think about it, it seems like you found the magic in Japanese.
For me,
That was a
yeah.
good one. To get started, what made you think of this process? What guided you, or when you discovered it, what did you find very beneficial about it? Overarching theme.
Brain-based research,
Okay.
brain research-based practices. Some of our favorites were one called Brain Matters, another one called, my favorite book ever is called Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. Even Marcia Tate, who was the one of the keynote speakers the year I was president of ACTFL 2021, the year we were online, she wrote a book called Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites. And like some of these really great books we'd been looking through. And as we looked through those, we learned some things that are like the core of brain research. Things like, you know, the brain pays attention to emotional content. The brain needs social interaction. The brain loves movement. The brain loves music and rhyme and rhythm and novelty. And the brain likes chunking of information into categories, real life problems. Like, so things like that we were starting to talk a lot about. But at the same time, luckily, like all of my professional learning in my whole career since 1994 has been at ACTFL, honestly, and Northeast Conference and, you know, Connecticut Council of Language Teachers. And through ACTFL, especially, I had, you know, in the back of my mind, like the guiding principles and, or, you know, you might call them the core practices. So things like target language use and using authentic text and stuff like that. So I had all that in my back of my mind too, as well as the can-do statements and the standards. So all of that was like swimming around in my mind. And then I went to a multilingual learner PD where the presenter was telling teachers, these are all different strategies you can use, but just to start, pick 3. She was saying, pick 3 that you're going to use. And I was like, that's really a cool way of thinking.
Hey, before I forget, don't forget about the ACTFL Convention and World Languages Expo. It happens every November at the end of the year, and you can find more about that at actfl.org/convention. The ACTFL Convention is globally recognized as the most comprehensive professional development event for language educators in the U.S. So, if it worked for Jessica, it can work for you. See you there.
Because it's too overwhelming for teachers and for when I'm teaching, you know, to think like I got to do all these million things.
Right.
So this concept of making it more simple is what I was trying to think about. So I was on a flight with my daughter sitting next to me. She was about 13, and I was writing all these words. So I was writing target language use. I was writing movement, music, interaction, challenge, chunking, authentic texts, you know, gaming. Like gaming is another thing the brain really likes, or gamified, you know, instruction. So I'm writing it all and I'm like, this must be something. There must be something I can do with it. And I'm not lying when I say she just turns to me and goes, that you could spell magic. And I was like, wait a second.
Oh my gosh. She saw it before you did. She knew where you were going. She knew what you could do. That's amazing.
Oh, and I love me a good acronym. So.
I do too. I still, what is it? PIMDAS? Yeah.
Right.
PIMDAS and
right? Yeah.
the solar system one. Yeah.
Piano, all that, right?
I can remember all of them. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's dive into them. So should we start with the letter M? Let's
Probably
see.
should.
Let's see.
That is how you spell magic. Yeah. Starts with an M. Good job.
Movement, music, and manipulatives.
That's right.
Give us more on that.
Wait, so let me preface this by saying
Sure.
this is about choosing one thing from each letter. So for example, so under M, we have movement. So any kind of movement, that could be TPR, like total physical response practice. It could be they're doing something where they're playing rock, paper, scissors. It could be where they have to stand up and I love putting things on the wall. So to me, any activity that you can think of can be put on the wall, even if it's the most boring worksheet you ever had, where there's a reading on the top and the questions on the bottom. If you just cut it in half, put the reading on the wall, make them walk to it, read it, and then go sit down and answer questions. Even if they have to get up 10 times, you're still doing more for their brain. Because the minute you get up, it's like
Activated.
Blood starts rushing to your brain and you can think better. So especially in these 80, 90-minute periods we're teaching in the high schools now, works great. So movement, manipulative, so any kind of card game. We do lots of flashcards with orally, like, so you just hand out the pictures of the things you're learning first. It could be anything, literally anything at any level. Even if it's like high level energy sources. So one card means solar, one card means wind power, one card means, fossil fuel power, whatever. The teacher holds up the similar picture, yells it out, the kids hold it up, you practice, and then you test the kids, you play games, and then you play slapping game in pairs with those cards, on and on and on. That's manipulative.
Sounds safe.
Right. Well, you're right. Well, if anyone does want to do the slapping game, I do have special rules for how you end it so that they don't punch each other in the face. I am available. Just let me know if you want to do it, and I'll give you the secret hints because we learned that. I learned that in teaching third grade.
Quick, yeah.
Or making something, making the pretty tissue paper flowers, whatever. Of course, you're staying in the target language while you're doing those things, but as soon as you activate fingertips, movement, music, and then of course, all kinds of music, hearing music, singing music. It could just be that the teacher makes up a chant, like all the things I hated teaching in Japanese, I would just make a chant for it, like school objects. Like we do this chant, where you're basically in Japanese saying like paper, pencil, scissors, eraser, da da da. It was like that, and you just say it every day with the pictures, and the kids know it. So anything like that.
That's funny.
I'm not saying you do all those every day. I'm saying each day, make sure you do one of those. Million, as we just said. Yeah.
It does. Hey, I want to shout out my mom because my mom was a teacher and you're talking about all this. She taught 20 years ago, but she used to like sing these silly songs and it was so embarrassing as her daughter. But I promise you, we all remember those silly songs and we all remember those lessons. So it's like she was, it's like y'all all, teachers are so impressive. And you're right that stuff, it sticks with you. Yeah. 20 years later, I remember.
Shout out to Christine's
all
mom.
of the older, shout out to your mom. All of the older folks listening will remember Schoolhouse Rock. I mean,
I remember Schoolhouse Rock.
Right. Every single one of us, when we took that test on, would be like
Constitution.
That's how we all know the Constitution. Yeah, it works.
Awesome.
And that's for a reason. Like that's a brain-based reason. And again, it works with every level.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
So let's see. The letter A, authentic texts, experiences, and the arts. How do you?
I added the arts later.
Okay.
Because so I have a lot of schools in New Haven here where we're magnet schools, so we do have focus on the arts, but also just drawing fits into this brain-based sort of way of thinking. So anytime you can as a way, it doesn't have to be every day though, because some kids don't like drawing, but sometimes to say to kids, okay, I'm going to say the word in the number one box, and then of course you're saying it in the target language, you say in the number one box, draw whatever, and it could be something very easy like pencil, or it could be something in your your AP class where you're saying a description and they have to try to draw it. So I'm not, that's the kind of arts I'm meaning, or dance. All those things that would fall under fine arts are absolutely also connected to the brain and engaging. So, but of course, authentic texts and experiences. So anytime you can pull out an authentic text versus sort of a textbook or a, for learning type text, if you can pull out an infographic or a grocery store flyer or a menu, you will. And so this part comes more from the ACTFL side of my understanding of language teaching, but it also is about novelty, and the brain looks for novelty. And if you see an infographic about ramen, which, from Japan, you're going to be much more interested in looking at that than you are if I'm just trying to teach you like how to use a certain grammar point in Japanese, right? So,
Correct.
Anytime you can use an authentic text, anytime you can use an authentic experience where they acting out with some stupid little plastic fruits or whatever they've got. One of my teachers even has has credit cards, old credit cards, and the kids pretend to like zip them in middle school. They're there pretending to take the credit cards and all this stuff. That's what increases engagement.
It connects the dots. It really does.
Yes. So if you can have a little something like that.
Yeah, I love arts and crafts, so I'm invested. I'll do it.
And not everybody does, but that's okay, because one day it's a craft, another day it's an authentic role play, another day it's an authentic text. It's just about every day having something from the A checklist.
That's pretty cool, because for me, I when I think about that, just knowing that we're in an AI world, I would like to look at a different, like seeing something that's authentic, something that's real, something that's in your hand is almost like authentic integration, another form of AI, right? So it's like it's good for the student. I remember when I was a kid, when we still used checks and checkbooks. It was a big deal just kind of like see that in your hands and actually write your name and then put the numbers in. It's like, okay, I feel kind of grown. I love the authenticity of that, because it does bring a humanistic approach, and it draws us a little bit closer than, always looking at material that's being told at you.
Right. And we know, of course, from even in our intercultural can-do statements at ACTFL, like we know that kids are going to pull far more culture, even if it's not sort of directly taught to them. They will notice more culture in an authentic text, and they will get more culture from an authentic text than they ever could from something created for learners. Not that those things don't have a place. Like all those texts have a place. It's not that you don't use them. It's just that anytime you can bring in those authentic ones, even though they're hard to find, perfect ones are hard to find, it's worth it.
Yeah. And I'm very curious, like your role plays, how would those go in your class? What would be like a role play you would do?
All right. So anything from, with first graders, we used to do a fruit stand where they were actually selling. They made these little fruits, like pieces of paper, and they had them in little bags, and every kid got 10 yen. And then they also decided their price, 1, 2, or 3 yen, and they would have to go around and they would buy from each other. And it was fun. And they would have to say like, apple, please. And the other kid would be like, 2 yen, please. And then like, here you go, thank you. And they'd walk away. And then after, we would do this interesting thing where it turned out that the thing that was 1 yen, the thing that was the cheapest always sold the most, because we would and they sort of learned an economics lesson that like if everything's expensive, nobody will buy it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but then in the high school, we do something similar where we have big food trucks areas in New Haven, so the kids create trucks with like those science boards,
that's cool.
The display boards, and then they like cut a hole in it, and then they make a food truck, and then they sell food to each other through the food truck, things like that. So there's things like that. There's all kinds of role plays you can do. You don't need much. You just need like some props that make it fun, and some backdrop, which you can do with a slide,
Yeah, we did something like a mini society, I think we called it, and it was similar to that. But I remember that clearly, because you're putting it's more useful information than just asking where's the library. Like I'm able to actually, like you said, it's also an economics lesson. It's also a language learning lesson. I like that. It's fun.
Yeah, the next time you have your kids do this, if you ever do it again, just make sure they have a taco stand with some tacos, and
all right.
I'll be right there. We'll be there in a heartbeat. Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah.
Okay, magic. So we got
Gotta
the
come to New
M&A.
Haven then. We got them all along the river.
All along the river.
Of course. All along the Long Island Sound. We got tacos.
I think it's more lobster rolls up there than tacos, but I'm there either way.
We have a wonderful taco truck area.
Oh
I'm
man,
there.
that's some good news for me. I like that. No, that's cool. So M&A, we covered that. So now we're moving to G, which is gaming, guessing, and got it. So
Guessing and
what
got
So
it.
this
is that?
one, I mean, gaming's pretty straightforward, right? So
Mhm.
it can be some kind of a competition, though.
Mhm.
It could be all of these games we play now, like Gimkit and Kahoot and Bluekit and whatnot, and those are fun. They have their place.
Mhm.
I personally have sort of started watching and seeing that I taught Japanese. I taught one high school class the last 2 years, and I didn't feel like the kids learned that much from those games because they're doing it so fast that they're
Okay.
The clock.
looking at the wrong answer when they get the wrong. They just like, oh, forget it, just go to the next one.
Right.
So they're fine and they have their place, and I love them and they love them, whatever. But 5-10 minutes once a week for me. But
Long.
the other gaming, like there's so many great things you can do where they have to listen and they have to be in teams, or they have to, one of my favorite is it's too long to explain, but basically, in a nutshell, teams compete by looking at a slide of a picture and they have to describe as much as they can, and they get points for how much they say, and they get bonus points for making sentences. And then
Oh,
you switch the slide. So, but I'll put a little write-up of that in the
yeah.
but and then the other piece that's really might sound weird, but and I don't know the exact reference to brain research about it, but it's the
Okay.
idea that kids like to, at every age, guess the answer to something and then find out if they got it right, but you have to make it like a game show in order for this to feel great. So anytime the teachers do any kind of activity, even it could be like, again, the most, not so exciting worksheet, if you can take that and make it so that there's a moment when you use animation on your slides to say, like, what's the answer to this one, in the target language, or A or B or C or whatever it is. And then you take a moment where you make the kids kind of vote or invest, or, this one kid says it and you're like, okay, does everyone agree? Yes or no? Like something where you almost like Family Feud, Family Feud, when they say the
Yeah.
answers, and you
Yeah.
gotta say, survey says, you want that moment. And then you go, like in Japanese, I go, ja-ja, and jan, 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 which is like, dun, 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 like there's this word we say.
Uh-huh.
And then you will physically see kids be like, yes. And that's what you want. It's that I got it. And it works so well for so many reasons. We make sure the kids get markers. We always hand out markers and correct so that we can look across and see that everyone's not writing in pencil and using marker. But also then the teachers are not correcting things at home. The kids are learning from correcting their own. And, you can even have a kid write how many they got correct on the top of their paper. And then you just look at it at night and see if they did the work or not. Spending the extra 10 minutes to correct it together in this way gets more learning out of your hard planning time for teachers.
True.
So I love it. Yeah,
So what happens? Let's say, okay, we have these groups. Do the groups vote as one, or does it
you can do it however you want.
However you want?
Depends on the activity, like if it's an ABC answer thing, which I do sometimes, I'll just have the whole class vote, and I'd be like, who thinks A? And it's such another silly thing is that if nobody's voting, if nobody's raising their hand, or maybe one kid raises their hand, if you as a teacher start counting, if you be like, uno, dos, for some reason they'll all start voting. I don't know why. So say, who thinks A? And then they raise their hand, you go, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, and you put 4 on the board. And then who thinks B? If you count and then put the number on the board, they become even more engaged. It's almost like I want to know that the one I voted for wins. Or you can do it where if it's a sentence, like they had write a sentence or whatever, true, false, whatever. You ask one kid and then you say to the whole class, do you agree with his answer or not? And make them all do thumbs up, thumbs down. And then you can count the thumbs up. That's your teacher trick. If they're not voting when you want them to, start counting the votes. And if you count the votes, more kids tend to vote.
No, that's
interesting.
That's actually
I know, it's all
just a trick of the trade.
Trick of the trade. Yeah.
Well, I love it because it seems like at first I was like, okay, if I get the answer wrong, will I feel called out? But it doesn't seem like
Nope.
that happens. It's kind of like a
Over.
voting process, and like no one's really tracking anyone. It's
Nope.
like everyone's looking ahead at the gamification, and no one's really feeling like, oh, I'm scared to put my hand up because I have the wrong answer.
Oh, good point. Yeah, it is absolutely, it has to be whole group and it has to be fast. You don't spend a 10 minutes telling some kid, are you sure? Are you sure? So you
Yeah.
feel embarrassed. And then if they get it wrong, only they know they got it wrong because they fixed it on
Correct.
paper.
That's
So,
great.
like we tell our teachers, if you've got kids that aren't doing a lot of work or aren't willing to get started on the work, because we see that sometimes, and we put on our paper like 3 points to start the paper, 4 points to finish, and then 3 points to correct it. So as soon as the kids start working, the teachers walk around and just put a little check on their paper, and that's worth 3 points. And if the kids aren't working, you don't even have to talk. The kid will be like, Miss, why didn't you put a check on my paper? And all you have to do is point to their paper and be like, you haven't done anything. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You show them a look. And they're like, oh. And then the minute they put pen to paper, you put a check.
Uh,
And they're
That's all you
like, and
gotta
it's
do.
instant. That's what this generation needs, like instant feedback. And then the
They
timer goes
love the
off,
instant.
right? And then like they're supposed to be done with the paper. The timer goes off. You walk around, you put the second check, and that's worth 4 points. Then you hand out the markers. You do your fancy gamified correcting. You walk around, make sure they corrected it. You put the last points. As long as they've done it and corrected it, it's 10 points.
Yeah.
It's classwork. I don't care if they get it wrong.
Right.
Like, as long as they correct it. So it doesn't matter if it's correct. It matters if it's corrected. That's
true. Yeah. And
I like that idea.
in terms of advocacy, that's also great. Like it's never too early for kids to learn about voting and that process. And
That's
to see
true.
how that
That's
works,
true.
right? If anything, language teachers, we need you to, we got to get back to
Voting's
some voting.
important.
Well, and just learning that, like, even if you do get it wrong, you can correct it.
Yeah.
Like, that is a life lesson itself. So that's
what language
really
teachers
interesting.
is. Yeah, success every day. We're not, if in this day and age, you are not going to keep programs and
No.
enrollments if you're going to walk around telling kids what they got wrong.
Yep.
It's just not.
Agreed.
You have to show them the process of language learning. And then, of course, if it's a high stakes assessment and they got something wrong, they got something wrong. But the path to that is mistakes.
Yes. Yes. And it's language, and we need to continue our retention with students and language. If they feel like they just can't do it and has no pertinence to their life at any point, that's when we're losing them. But we're realizing, as you said, with the brain-based research, this critical thinking, these new avenues of thinking, they're all like language allows that. The way I think in English, when I learned French, I kind of thought a little differently in French just with the structure alone, and getting that understanding and that context is key.
Hey, the brain, the brain, the brain. You're listening to Jessica now, and she speaks about brain-based research. And I just want to let you know that we're going to offer more topics on this. We have a upcoming segment to come with a Dr. J.G. Grundy, and listen to some of the topics that he discusses. Does bilingualism protect against dementia? A meta-analysis. Bilinguals have more complex EEG brain signals in occipital regions than monolinguals. Commentary. The relationship of bilingualism compared to monolingualism to the risk of cognitive decline or dementia, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Effects of bilingualism on white matter integrity in older adults. The relation between brain signal complexity and task difficulty on an executive function task. Teachers, we want to advocate for language learning. And here at ACTFL, we'll make sure that in your toolkit, not only do you have the resources to teach in the classroom, but you also have the ability to explain the importance of language learning to important constituents. More soon. Back to Jessica.
So that gets us to interaction. Interaction with magic. What is that?
So this is one of the big ones that absolutely comes straight from brain research, but it also really ties in well with our standards because and it ties in well with what we need to be focusing on now, I think, in our language classes. I do think with the rise of AI and Google Translate and whatnot, I hate to say it, and I do strongly believe in reading and writing instruction as a path to proficiency, but I do think that a lot of focus needs to stay on interpersonal interactions, because to me, at least, higher level interpersonal interactions are the things that will not be able to be Google translatable accurately for a while anyway. Like the nuance, like you were just saying, of the cultural things and the sarcasm and the humor and all of those things are so key to communication. And some of the research we're seeing now from employers too is like they know that AI can't get that when it comes to interactions in the business world. So if nothing else, we have to get our kids to speak to each other at a high level by the time they leave us, or by the time they leave our college programs. So, and happily, brain research shows that the brain likes to interact with others. And even though we're seeing a lot of our kids are not used to this anymore and they have to ease back into it, we have to help them do that, because this is what the world is going to want from them. And so having experiences for the kids to talk to each other in pairs, in groups, you can encourage them to speak in longer sentences with your rubrics. You can do it other ways too, with little stamps. You're walking around every time you hear them use it right, your little stamps, things like that. But we have to get them speaking to each other in the target language, period.
I noticed also here that what you wrote, it says any English interactions are limited, meaningful, productive, 10% or less. I know this can be a difficult area, getting kids to speak in the target language. What are the frustrations with that to kind of mitigate, a child immediately going to English to make a statement? I know that can be frustrating at times, but how's that process for you?
So
context is key.
First of all, I'm not as strict with the kids talking. I'm not as strict with kids talking to each other in their native language, whatever that native language might be. Like if I'm teaching Japanese and I have two Spanish speakers, of course I'm going to let them interact with each other in Spanish, because it's just weird. Unless it's a moment when I've structured an activity where they're supposed to speak Japanese. So, you know what I mean? So the 10% or less really is, I should clarify that, it's really more for like the teacher, and now and then it's okay to have kids looking at something very complex, maybe culturally, or when we're doing a grammar and context lesson, for example, I might, during the discovery mode there, have kids talk to each other in their native language about like what they think is happening with this grammar. If I'm doing that, and that would be okay, but that's meaningful and productive. So it's not about never using English. That's never what we're saying. What we're saying is, first of all, as a teacher, I try to use 10% or less English.
Okay.
And of course, if that's what's happening, then the kids probably, if I'm teaching good, are not using that much English, because they're not hopefully not talking the whole time I'm teaching. But when I do have them talk to each other, I try to structure things in ways that they're going to be able to use the target language. Now, if they can't, it's because I probably haven't prepared them for the thing I'm asking them to do. So I have to examine that and think like, well, either I have to teach more before I ask them to do it, and that's clear with them. You can have your rubric, like I was saying, be like 4, 3, 2, 1, and the 2 and the 1 say, I used some English. And so you say to them, if you use English when I'm walking by, you can't get a 3 or a 4. Just so you know. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. You can rubric out of it. But to me, the key point I'd want people to remember is that it is not about never using English. It's about sitting there with your lesson plan the night before and thinking, if I just use English here for 30 seconds, I can explain this really complicated game that we're going to play. And then we're going to speak in the target language for 20 minutes.
It's intentional English.
It's intentional, meaningful, productive. Right. That's what drives my thinking. And almost always you can think of ways, if you think for long enough, you can almost always think of ways to explain things in the target language or model it or something. Or use
that is true. And another question that comes up from this, because you're driving interactions, especially between you, but also the students and themselves. I remember when I was younger and we had a strict 90-10, like we just used French all day long for every subject.
Wow.
But there were times where they would group us. And I found it weird when I was a kid too, which is interesting. I'm thinking about it now. But they would group us according to our levels. And I always wondered, like, why did these students get this table? And the four, like the strongest students are at this table. And, I'm probably at that
Yeah.
table. The second strongest and third, and it's like, would you want to mix the tables up a bit more to allow learning at all levels? Or like, how do you view that? Like, that's just something that happened back in the 80s, but I'm just curious, when it comes to putting these interactions, do you find it purposeful to kind of like get certain students to interact with other students?
So to me, it kind of depends on what the task is. I would say what you don't want to do is always have the heritage speaker or the native speaker having the burden of being like the
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah,
Like
the
that
team
cool
leader, yeah.
sometimes, but like what ends up
Not the whole
happening is
time.
they're pressured. Also, then the other kids just copy off of them. Like there's so many things that can go wrong with that
Mm.
Oh
model.
yeah, I was the kid who copied off the native speakers in Spanish. I admit it. I'm so sorry to all those
Why
kids.
not, right? Like, you're not an expert at your table. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I knew what I was doing.
teachers
So
know their
you,
kids. Can make good. But what I love about that too, though, just another teacher
yeah.
top tip, is if you think about it the night before, do not ever put kids in groups on the fly, like, or in pairs. Like, you two and you two, because that's when they'll fight you about who they're with. Especially now, the kids are very much, quite a few kids aren't interested in being paired or social or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Then they'll be like, I don't want to be with them. I don't want to talk to them. But if instead you think about it at night and put your pairs or groups on the board on a slide or on like a folder where like, this is this group's folder, and write their names, then you just be like, I'm sorry, that's what the slide says.
Yeah.
Blame the
That's what your
slide.
folder says. I can't cross it off. And for some reason that works. And they're like, oh, okay, and then they go sit with their group.
How funny.
Plus, you can do that at a time when you're calm and you're not sweating because you're teaching all these kids, and you can think like, who's best with who's not going to cause trouble with who. Like all that is so much better the night before.
That makes sense.
So dependent on the task,
Yeah.
you figure out what are the intentional interactions that you would like.
Yeah. And like
Got it.
what groupings you'd want.
Yeah, that makes sense because it can be one way for one task. You might want to put them with this student, and another task with another student. That makes sense. And
Sometimes it's just who's going to be nice to this kid who's
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
even behavioral
Personality.
wise, yeah, that's huge. And I know sometimes for some teachers, it's like, okay, I want to teach this lesson. What's the best way I can get this lesson taught in this environment? Oh, okay. That's actually a great little tool there, Jessica. Think the night before, like be intentional about your interactions. Just don't group, even now, like you get grouped in, you can be in a Zoom meeting corporately, get grouped in a meeting. Like, I don't know.
right.
I was like, hey, we'll see, we get
Yeah.
somebody who's
There's definitely some meetings. There's definitely some meetings I don't have to speak in for certain reasons, and I love those.
magic. Okay, so now we're at the letter C.
Yep.
Challenge, creativity, and chunking. What you got on that?
Right. So creativity is one that I added later too. But so challenge, yeah, I think this is the hardest thing when you're first teaching to figure out. Like, what's that sweet spot where it's hard enough that they're grappling with it a little bit. So they're grappling with meaning making by watching your gestures, watching your visuals, looking at the pictures you're showing. You don't want to be just giving them everything they understand, because if you'll notice, like if a task is too easy, so you'll really notice if you have a heritage speaker in your class, but if a task, like a written task, is too easy, you will see behavior start to happen, like poor behavior, or just sort of disinterest. Because kids, even though they're always not always, some kids are gonna say like, I don't want to do this, but sometimes it's about the level of challenge of the task. It's either too hard or too easy. And so there's this like sweet spot where it's challenging, but also interesting. Orally, I really like the use of push questions where you ask a question like, I'm just going to keep talking about fruit, but what's your favorite fruit? They say mango. You say, oh, really? How often do you eat mango? Like every day or once a week? Or, you push. And you can do that orally on the fly so that you can have that's almost the best way to differentiate, where you can have a heritage speaker, a native speaker, and like a novice high in your class, talk to all of them about mangoes, but at different levels. And the kids don't really notice it, but you know that you're asking an intermediate question to the
You're probing. Yeah, you're probing those young
like a
ones.
one-word answer question to the novice speaker. So anyway, so I like the challenge of give them the challenge that pushes them slightly, right? Because otherwise they check out. And just sort of high expectations too, like believing that if you provide visuals, gestures, hints, things they need, scaffolds, chat mats, if you provide the scaffolds they need, they will be able to speak Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, you name it. As soon as you pull those expectations down and start saying things like, well, that'll be too hard for them, or I don't want them to not understand, like they feel that. And so that's another reason I speak all in the target language with all these scaffolds, with visuals and stuff, because I want them to think from day one that I think they're going to learn Japanese, because they are, if I do my job right. And then go ahead. So, and then there's the chunking, which is a separate. This is from the brain research, directly, is this idea that, the brain can kind of hold 7 to 9 items in the short-term memory at a time, kind of. So
7 to 9? Oh my gosh.
New terms, right? So and they have to be chunked. So if I were to give you 7 to 9 unrelated words, it would be very, very hard.
Right.
But if I were to give you 7 to 9 fruits or, like that, then the brain starts to chunk them together. So that's very interesting. And it's a nice guideline for vocab. I really first of all, vocab is not going to be an issue. It isn't right now, because they're going to be able to look up any word they want whenever they want. So we have to let go of this 50 item vocab lists. But the idea of chunking is also chunking key functions with the vocab they need to talk about it. So instead of just learning vocab on its own, always have a function attached to it. So if you're learning about foods, maybe they're learning likes and dislikes, or maybe they're talking about how often they eat it, or maybe they're talking about who in their family eats it, or whatever, some function that goes with it that chunks it together. Helps the brain. And then creativity is also something that fires the novelty in the brain. So even if it's the silliest thing, even if it's vocab, you say to the kids, okay, you teach them a bunch of sports or hobbies, but then say to them, okay, everybody, speedy Googler challenge, go on and find 2 words we didn't learn. Any word you want to know how to say that's a sports or a hobby, and let them look for it. Or let them create something, let them paint something or draw something, and then that becomes the art gallery walk around where they're going to, be the art, the docent, and explain it to their peers in the target language. So anything at all that sparks some creativity works.
Yeah. That's pretty.
I feel like I have so many ideas, and I'm not a teacher, but I want to put them into practice. But I don't want to be a teacher.
That's why you do fun, right?
And this is a good area to kind of challenge them a bit. It's okay to challenge the students because they need to be challenged. But if you're creative with it, it's not as hard.
Every student needs to be challenged. No matter how low you think they are, whatever they're at, they need to feel that it's a little bit hard, but not too hard. It's a very difficult sweet spot. And I don't get it right every day lesson. I'm not teaching right now, but when I taught, I did not get it right all the time. But when you don't get it right, you know it. But when you do get it right, you know it. Okay. They loved this. If you've got the right challenge, then when you go back and do that guessing and got it part where you're like, what do you think the answer is? And they're like, yes. And you're like, okay, I got it. I nailed it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. This is some great information you gave us, Jessica. And I'm truly appreciative for all of our teachers out there. It's every week we learn these new little pieces that I'm just happy that are be part of the Active Voices podcast. That's wonderful. Before we end the podcast or anything, I wanted to see, do you have a story? Or I'm sure you do.
On the spot.
Where you felt it could either be you ran into a difficulty with a student and you were able to overcome it, or something that
That's a job interview question, Ansley. Oh my gosh.
no.
I got
Thought I
PTSD
was
just
done
thinking
with
about that.
or just overall, just like, hey, this worked when I did this, and this was the outcome.
Absolutely.
We're keeping it loose, but at the same time, if I'm sure you got something you can pick from, but no
I'm
pressure.
sure.
Goodness. Here's what I'll say. It's not really a story, but
Sure.
I've actually done this. So I would say that everything I learned how to teach correctly or like effectively, I learned teaching kindergarten. And that
Aw.
we actually did that presentation. So my former colleague, Kazumi Yamashita Iverson, who's still teaching in the pre-K to 5 Japanese program that I started in, she and so one of our former students who went through that program pre-K to 5 went to UMass Amherst, majored in Japanese, and now she teaches Japanese for me here in New Haven. She's a high school Japanese teacher. So it's an
Whoa.
amazing story. And the three of us presented together at ACTFL about
Wow.
this, about how, and what we did was we showed video of Kazumi's kindergarten and our high school students doing similar activities. Like, it's just fun. It just makes everything more fun and interesting.
Awesome. That's
Absolutely.
great. Thanks so much, Jessica. So, do you have a website or email address if you want? Do you want anyone to get in touch with you? Do you have that? You can
Social
say so here.
media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can probably just find me on there. I'm usually at Haxhi, Haxhi.
Mhm.
Or my email is a little tricky, but it's jessica.haxhi, Haxhi so it spells New Haven Board of Ed. So NHBOE.net. And they're welcome to email.
Yeah.
I do have websites, but it's too long to say.
We'll add it
Well,
to the notes.
Okay.
we'll add it to the notes and get all of that done. And this has been great information. Thanks so much, Jessica. Christine, do you have anything you want to follow up with or close out with?
Yeah, it's so fun listening to all of y'all's experiences, and it makes me reflect back on like my teachers, and like I got to reflect on my mom singing those silly songs and me being so embarrassed. But she was teaching us at the time. I was like, she's just absolutely trying to embarrass me. But it's fun to sit back and reflect on those moments, and so I really appreciate everything you've done for the teaching community, and then today just kind of teaching us as well. I think magic is a great idea, and I think, like you said, just having those little kind of cues is very helpful. I really enjoyed this today, so I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much. It was great. It was great to talk to both of you. Thanks so much for asking me.
Of course, of course. Thanks, Christine. And as always, I said I have nothing to add to that, but I will be awaiting those tacos at some point, Jessica. So
Yeah, come on to New Haven. Well, thank you.
Never joke about a taco invite. We don't joke about that.
thanks so much.
Hey, as we end this, I just want to let you know that we'll soon be needing your votes. So we're going to put some polls up, and your feedback will be awesome. And as always, the future speaks through us. Until next time.